Welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, with your host, Mark Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields and academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Sculptor Stella Singleton Jones visits us today to talk about her love of art and her sculptures, one of which graces the halls of the White House.
Hello, and welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, brought to you by Grade Success Education. I'm Mark Hoberman, and I am very excited to introduce our guest today, Sculptor Stella Singleton Jones. She has a tremendous story to tell, and I'm so happy that she is with us today. Stella, welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Thank you for having me. I feel honored and blessed.
Oh, thank you. So I also want to ask you so many questions about art, because my wife and I played Pictionary once, and I drew a duck and she guessed table. So obviously we're not too good at that. Mm-hmm. So that being the case, how did you get started in art to begin with? Not just sculpting, art.
Okay, I started art when I was around 5 years old. And the story is my mom was watching news and I was bored to death. So I picked up a piece of paper and a pencil and I just drew her. Because she looked at it and said, "Oh, that's really lovely," I decided at that moment to become an artist.
Well, I have to tell you, my mother saw some of the work I did and said that was very lovely too, but she was just being nice. So I think it's wonderful. That would lead me to my next question, because I find that people who are artistic, meaning they can draw. When it came, I don't know if it was paper mache or what we did. We covered a balloon with it and made a face out of it. I couldn't do that. But anything, whether it would be drawing or sculpting or taking a crayon, anything, they were always good at it. Are you really good at all different parts of art?
Yes, I am. I paint, I draw, and do the stonework.
Excellent, outstanding. And with all the different art out there, how did you first become introduced to sculpting?
That's a funny story. I was at Santa Monica Junior College and I called myself enrolling into a drawing class to better enhance my drawing capability. And I was looking for trees and apples and so forth. And I set up my easel and I'm like, well, where's the trees and the apples? I didn't see that. Next thing I notice, a man walks out, steps on a table and drops his clothes. I said, okay, this is not the class for me. I packed up all my belongings and left. And that next day enrolled into a stone sculptures class at Santa Monica Junior College.
Wow. I wonder if the model knows that, because if he is the muse that made you leave.
Well, all the students that were a part of that art class tease me till this day about that.
I'm sure. You know, I read up a little bit on you, and I see that you went to John Burroughs Junior High School. Now, I also went to John Burroughs Junior High School, believe it or not, but in Yonkers, New York.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know there was another one. So I still recall so many of my experiences that I had both in junior and senior high school. So what impact did that early education have in your life?
Well, in the 7th grade, I walked beside the art department. I looked in and I saw they were doing art. I saw the instructor and I said, oh, I can do art. He said, okay, well, next semester enroll. I said, okay. So next semester I enrolled into the art class and he gave me my first project, which was chicken wire, plaster of Paris, and tablecloth. And he said, I want you to make something lovely out of this. I said, okay. So I created a sculpture and I stained it brown. And after he saw it, he looked at me and he said, oh my gosh, this is really beautiful. Now I'm in the 7th grade, about 12 years old. And he asked me, he said, can I enter this art piece into an art competition? And I just agreed. I didn't know what that was. And he said, okay. So about 2 months later, he came back and he said to me, your art piece was accepted into the art competition. And he said, the award show is next week and I want you and your parents to come. And I said, okay. So time came. That Friday, he reminded me it was on Saturday, but Saturday morning, you know, I'm a typical little girl. I'm outside playing with my dog in the backyard. So I'm gonna say around 1 p.m., the teacher calls my parents and said, well, where are you guys? You're supposed to be at this art exhibit. And my dad wasn't aware of what was going on. So he comes in the backyard while I'm playing with the dog. He said, "Did you forget to tell us something?" I said, "No." He said, "Don't you have an art exhibit?" And I still didn't know what that was. And I was like, "No, I don't." He said, "Yes, you do. Your art teacher called us." So I went you run upstairs and get dressed. So after I got dressed, we got to the art exhibit. And when we walked in the door, all I saw was flashlights going off. And so I was shy at that time. I kind of hid behind my dad. So my dad was saying to the instructor, ran up to him and shaking my dad's hand. My dad was looking at him and said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "Mr. Singleton, you don't understand. Your daughter won. Your daughter won." So my dad said, "Well, what did she win?" He said, "Come over to the wards and they'll tell you." Not only did she win for junior high school, college, she won for the whole state of Southern California.
Oh, wow.
I'm only 12 years old. So my dad was looking at me. He said, "Well, I didn't know you were that talented." And I said, "Oh, wow." So then my prize was I went to Otis Art Institution for a year at 12 years old and California Design Center. So in the summers, I would go to Otis and California Design Center for about a year and a half. And I remember my first day at Otis Art Institution, being the smallest, youngest person there with all these adult artists. And they would talk to me, but I wouldn't respond. I was just shy, you know. And the instructor comes in and said, "I know you guys see our new student. She's very talented and you guys will see her work and then decide for yourself." So at that time, they were painting big murals. So I said, "Okay." So the teacher let me go on the side by myself and gave me the paints and everything I needed. And I did my mural. And then the students came back and said to me, "We understand why you're here now." And I was like, "Oh," so that opened the door for me to come out my shyness and speak with the students. And they supported me throughout that whole 2 years of my summer project with them. So that was a nice experience. Now I'm gonna move over to California Design Center. When I went there, you know, again, it was adult students there, but they were working on a project. Now you and I remember that when McDonald's first came out, their hamburgers were in a wrapping. Right. So later on, this design center asked us to make something for McDonald's. So the styrofoam box that they have for the hamburgers, well, my design class designed that for McDonald's.
Oh my
So the
God.
school got the credit, but our names are like on a plaque of everybody that was involved in the project.
Wow. How
So
long ago
now,
was that?
huh?
How long ago was that?
That was in the early 70s. So probably like 1974, 75.
Wow.
Yeah. So 12 years old. Now I'm on this big
Yeah,
project with McDonald's in their packaging. So it's been a good journey.
sure. And I think you're just getting started. So, yeah, so I wanted to ask you so many things. I wasn't aware that you were that young when you went there. So I'm guessing the other people were much older than you when you
Yes.
went away those summers. Right.
Yes.
So it's not just shyness, it's that, you even put a boisterous 12-year-old next to an 18-year-old popular boisterous person. It's not exactly the same, certainly not in those teen years. So I want to flip to, we're hearing wonderful things, people who know my story on the show and adversity that I've dealt with as a young person through adulthood, different things. I'm pretty sure there's been certain adversities in your life,
Yes.
which might speak to your art and things of that nature. Would you be able to walk our viewers through some of the adversity you've had to overcome to get where you are today?
Yes, I have two incidents that occurred within the past 5 years. One, I did an art show at the Art Brewery in downtown Los Angeles, and this is an area where a lot of famous artists get together and exhibit. I had this art show. It was a combined show with 10 different artists. It was myself and another stone sculptorist person there, female, and she and I became good friends throughout the process of this exposition. And the day of the event, she went to introduce me to her husband, and her husband looked at me and he wouldn't respond. And I said, "That's great." And I still said hello. And then the show went on. And then the coordinator of the show came out and said, "We're going to start the show and introduce our artists." And then he said, "We're going to introduce our what did they call it? Our guest artists." And so at the end, they introduced me, and I looked at the gentleman, and he did not really realize I was the guest artist. And I just smiled at him, and I said, "We're still family, we're all artists in here." And so that was my first experience of being with a group of people and then have to deal with someone not addressing me or want to shake my hand. So that I was surprised to experience that. Another incident happened in Palos Verdes, California, and I was doing a big show out there. And this lady came up to me. She looked at my artwork and she said it's beautiful and everything. And I introduced myself. And the only thing she asked me was, well, what kind of car do you drive? And I was like, well, what does that have to do with art? So I said, well, I drive a Toyota. And she looked at me and said, and walked off. I was so stunned. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, okay, so I understood I have to deal with these kind of things in the art world, but that made me more of a humble person and more of a person that spread more love through the arts.
Gotcha. And but some of those things can make you stronger. So I'm sorry that you went through that, but the truth is it shapes who our struggles shape who we are as we get older.
Yes.
And you mentioned art is expression, and art is extremely expressive. So what does your artwork represent about you?
I'm a very spiritual person. And because I had a medical ordeal that I went through, I'm a survivor of meningococcal spinal meningitis, which is the deadly one. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I lost my brother from that a few years prior to me getting ill. And I was in a coma for 2.5 weeks. I had to learn how to walk and talk all over again. And at that time, I was a word processor for the bus company, and I lost my skills. So I was deemed that I couldn't work any longer. I am officially disabled. So my doctors decided that I should go back to college. And I remember I was an artist, so I went back to school. And at Santa Monica Junior College, they let me be in my little corner. And I wanted to know if I still had the creativity ability, since I hadn't did it for at least 10, 15 years. And my first sculpture that I made, the instructor looked at me, he said, I think you still have it. And to this day, it's my #1 art piece. And then the next piece that I made at Santa Monica Junior College was the Unity sculpture, which is in the White House as of today. It's been in the White House since 2009. It is part of the permanent collection of the White House. So I'm really pleased with, my experiences as far as the art world, but my journey of what I experienced being sick. And I always felt like in my art, I wanted to show the love. So anybody else that's going through something medical like I did, I just having a bad day, they can look at the art. And my goal is to inspire them with love through the arts.
That's beautiful. And you're an expert sculptor, but there are great artists out there. How do we go from, oh, this is beautiful, to, and let's deliver it to the White House? There's got to be a lot of steps in between having your artwork be as wonderful and beautiful as it is, and being able to have someone see it and then connect to someone else, and then it goes into the White House. What does that journey look like?
Well, thank you for those beautiful, nice, encouraging words. I really appreciate that. When I made the Unity sculpture at Santa Monica Junior College, while I was sitting on the table, I looked at it and said, Lord, this is a beautiful piece. It's too beautiful for someone to have in their house. We need to share it. And I walked around the table about 2 times, and I just felt like, send it to the White House. So I went on faith. So I went and had a professional package, and then I sent it UPS with a beautiful letter, and I shipped it to the White House. About 2 weeks later, the coordinator of the White House calls me and said, we accepted it. The president thinks it's beautiful, and we thank you for that. They wanted to know the value of the art piece, and I told him that. And he said, you're going to receive a letter from the White House. And I just felt so overwhelmed that they accepted it, and I was very happy. And then about 2 weeks later, I'm in the kitchen making breakfast. I hear my phone ring, but I said, I'm making breakfast. I'm not going to stop. Well, I missed my phone call from the president from the White House.
Oh, man, you got to get that breakfast. Get that phone.
He did leave a message. Well, his assistants left a message on my phone saying this is a phone call from the White House, and we were reaching out to you. And that's what I have on my phone as of today. But they sent me some beautiful thank you cards and all that. And so I have those as precious gifts to pass on in my family.
Sure. And this is the Obama White House?
Yes,
And so is it still in the White House today?
it's still in the White House today as a permanent collection of the White House.
How do you value a piece of artwork? Because they said, what's the value? You could say, this is my heart. That's the value.
That is true too, but it has also to do with the two things: the supplies that I have to purchase to make the art piece, and the time that I take out to make the art piece. So that's how I pretty much that's how I make the price of an art piece: the time and the supplies.
So the Unity sculpture, from start to finish, how long in work hours did that take to create?
The smaller pieces take anywhere from 1 month to a month and a half. The medium-sized pieces anywhere from 2.5 months to 3.5 months, and the big, larger ones, easy 6.5 months.
Right. So for the young budding artists who are watching now,
Yes.
they are probably thinking, what does 1 month mean? I go to watch TV, I do 5 minutes of artwork, I have a little piece of cake, I come back, I look at it, it's lovely. 2 days later, I go in, I say, let's move this. So are we talking an 8-hour workday? Are we taking?
No, we're talking anywhere from 2 to 3 hours per day, because after 3 hours, the art piece is getting a little too heavy for me, and the chisel tools, I'm getting a little bit too tired.
Right. Right.
And 1.5 months means I'm only working 2 or 3 hours a day.
Gotcha. That's I wouldn't call that an only, especially for that amount of time. That's a tremendous amount of time. So I know that many times I've seen artwork that speaks to me. Many times I see artwork and I start laughing and I'm like, I don't know what this is. And other people are like, oh my God. I mean, I used to go in the mall and they had these pictures that if you looked at it a certain way, you could see the elephant. And I am just sitting there saying, I can't see it. And people would laugh and my sons would say, what are you doing? It's right there. It's right there. So it's so subjective. So what do you want others to experience when they see your sculptures?
Well, I'm an abstract stone sculptorist, and I like the word abstract because it's to the eyes, it's what you might make the art piece out to be. It's not one set art piece for one person. It's to gravitate to everyone. So when I make artworks, I look at artwork as a 3-dimensional. Well, actually 4. I have the front, the back, and the 2 sides. And all my art pieces, all 4 sides are totally different. So you can turn the art piece around and gravitate to one side. If you don't like that side, you can gravitate to another side. And I make that out of love to uplift people, because we're all going through a struggle in life. So I'm trying to just take a few moments out of your life to show some joy, some love, some feel good. And that hopefully would be a chain reaction to inspire others people, to lift up other people. And that's why I use the word, my main theme is love. So
that's beautiful and much appreciated. Just a wonderful sentiment. What is your motivation? I mean, when it comes to art, you don't get up in the morning and say, you know what I'm going to sculpt today? This. There's got to be something that's your muse, something that motivates you from art piece to art piece.
Yes, there is. My motivation is my spiritual insight, and also all the beautiful conversations that I have with beautiful, lovely people like yourself. And I go in the studio and I remember all these beautiful conversations and I create something beautiful out of it.
Well, let me ask you a question. 2 people are looking at the Unity sculpture.
Yes.
And there's a hidden microphone underneath the sculpture. Yes. And you hear them talking. What would Stella Singleton Jones love to be hearing during that conversation?
That they like the sculpture and it inspired them to do something beautiful in life.
That's great. So it's just these altruistic, emotions you have. Just it's spoken for you through your art, obviously. But you mentioned there were struggles. I did not know how young you started.
Yes.
And to be honest,
I'm an art prodigy as the age of 5.
Yes. So I was about to say that sounds like something godly, because when I hear somebody get sick and loses their skills,
yes,
I would argue that there was no or is no medical situation you could have that could take that away from Stella. It sounds like I had to learn to do this again and do that again. But when I went to the sculptor, I don't get all religious on the show ever, but it's from what you're saying, it sounds like God spoke to me and God was like, no, this side of the brain that does the sculpture and the magic, nobody's touching that.
Yes, that's what
That's a beautiful thing. And the fact that you want to spread that to others is wonderful.
yeah.
So what's next for Stella Singleton Jones?
My next thing I want to do, I want to see my artwork on a TV show or a commercial or in a play. Like I said, just spread the love in every direction I can spread the love in. Because let me tell you something, being in a coma for 2.5 weeks and waking out, you see life differently than before. And you want people to realize that tomorrow is never promised. So do what you can do on that day. Tell the people you love on that day. Forgive the people who did you that wrong that day. Because like I said, there's no guarantee about tomorrow. And the most important thing to me is that people get along and love on their families and friends.
That's beautiful. And what I also heard was, I want to have my artwork on TV or here. So what I'm hearing is McDonald's is not good enough for you. The White House is not good enough for you. So I don't know, there must be some TV show you like that you want to have them cut to a scene where your artwork is right there on the piano and say, that's mine.
Yes.
I get it.
White House is perfect. McDonald's is perfect, but I still have more love to show.
Of course, it's never ending. What advice would you give to young people who are interested in a career in the field of art? They know they have something special. They believe in their passion. They want to follow it through, but it's definitely not an easy medium to make money and make it a career and really show your passion consistently and full time. Yes. What advice would you give young people?
My advice is never give up on your dream. That's the first advice. The second advice, yes, you might get a lot of no's, but all you need is that one yes. And then you're doing something that fills your heart. And when your heart is filled, you do it to your best ability. So as an artist, that's what I get the joy out of doing. I'm doing something that I love from my heart, and I'm doing something that it's going to help someone else's life, especially if they're having some down moments. They can look at something beautiful and spark back up and maybe say, I can do whatever I'm inquiring to do in my life. So the journey is to do a ripple effect of bringing joy and inspiring others.
What a life lesson. What a great answer. And I hope young people are watching and their parents are watching. And there's always got to be something next. You're an artist. So what is next for you?
Right now, normally the month of October, I have an annual show where I give back to the next generation of artists. My last show that I did last year, I had artists as young as 5 years old to 13 years of age. And we went to the museum and we did 7 workshops during the summertime. And their final product, their pictures that they made, I had them to exhibit with me, and I had them to put up their artwork in the museum. So they have that museum feeling experience, and they got beautiful the night of the event. And I introduced them, and they got up and said their names, their age, and what school they went to. And just to bring the spark out of them, just to let them know that, you know, we adults, we love back and we give back and we're proud of them, and they need that support. And I do remember being a child, I didn't have that support. So I make it my mission now to give back, to let kids know we're there for them.
Thank you for that. And how would people find out more about you and the work you do?
Okay, you can go to my website, Sculptures by Stella, and see my artwork. And please go to the link that says a letter to the president. You can see the letter that I wrote to President Obama and First Lady Michelle. And also to contact me, you can go to my email. That's StellaJ1006@sbcglobal.net. Excellent.
Listen, Stella Singleton Jones, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your incredible story. More than that, the life lessons through art was so interesting and so inspiring. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a great joy.
Such a pleasure. And this is Mark Hoberman thanking you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. Have a great day. Stella, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. To contact Mark Hoberman, email him at info@gradesuccess.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame.